Since the first humans tilted their heads toward the stars, a question has burned in the imagination. Are we alone? From the earliest myths to the latest radio telescopes, our species has carried a restless yearning for cosmic company. This longing is as much about ourselves as it is about the heavens, a search not only for others, but for meaning in the vast silence of space. In ancient traditions, the stars were never mere lights. They were gods, ancestors, messengers, or entire realms. The Babylonians charted the heavens as a dialogue between mortals and the divine. In Hindu cosmology, the universe teemed with countless worlds populated by beings of varying power and wisdom. Greek myths told of gods descending from the skies, mingling with humans, blurring the line between the earthly and the cosmic. To imagine the heavens alive was to refuse loneliness, to believe that the night sky was filled with presence, not emptiness. As philosophy matured, the longing shifted into speculation. In the 4th century BCE, Epicurus suggested there must be innumerable worlds, some like our own, some unlike it, seeded with life. The Roman poet Lucretius echoed this in his On the Nature of Things, marveling at the absurdity of believing Earth to be unique in an infinite cosmos. Across centuries, this theme resurfaced. Giordano Bruno in the Renaissance spoke of innumerable suns and innumerable Earths, a claim so bold it cost him his life. Each vision carried the same heartbeat, an insistence that existence is too vast for us to occupy it alone. In the modern era, myth gave way to science, but the yearning only grew sharper. With telescopes, spectroscopes, and equations, we no longer imagined gods in the stars. We imagined civilization. The search became organized in the 20th century through projects like SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Astronomers swept the skies with radio dishes, hoping to intercept a signal, a cosmic hello across the void. The Drake equation quantified our hopes, multiplying probabilities to estimate the number of detectable civilization. Even if many of its terms were guesses, it framed the longing in numbers, making yearning measurable. Yet with this scientific turn came an unsettling contrast: silence. Decades of listening have yielded no unambiguous message, no whisper from the stars. This absence, dubbed the Fermi paradox, stirs unease. If the universe is vast and old, and if life tends to emerge, then where is everyone? The silence gnaws at us because it contradicts the expectation that others should already be here, colonizing, signaling, or at least leaving traces. Between our hope and the silence lies a chasm, one that forces us to reflect on whether our longing is a projection rather than a promise. Still, the absence does not extinguish the yearning. If anything, it sharpens it. Every exoplanet discovered in a habitable zone reignites the flame. Every new instrument, from the James Webb Space Telescope to next-generation radio arrays, feels like another attempt to bridge the void. The search is not only scientific, it is existential. To imagine we are alone is to shoulder the weight of cosmic solitude. To imagine others is to share that burden. To see ourselves as part of a grander community of mind. The longing for others may never be satisfied, but it defines us. Whether the silence reflects our isolation or the vast distances between civilizations, the yearning itself reveals something profound. We are a species that cannot help but seek connection. Even if no one answers, the act of calling out shapes who we are. Hope keeps us scanning the skies. Silence keeps us humble. And in the tension between them, humanity continues its oldest and most universal story: the search for others in the dark. The great silence. Look up on a clear night and the universe feels crowded, billions of stars scattered across the sky, each perhaps with planets of its own. Modern astronomy has confirmed what ancient dreamers suspected: worlds are common. The Milky Way alone may harbor hundreds of billions of planets, with tens of billions potentially orbiting within the habitable zone where liquid water could exist. Statistically, it seems almost certain that life should have arisen elsewhere. Yet despite decades of listening and searching, the cosmos answers with silence. This dissonance is what we call the Great Silence. The tension was famously framed by physicist Enrico Fermi in the 1950s. Over lunch one day, he asked a deceptively simple question: where is everybody? If the galaxy is so old, if stars have formed for billions of years, and if life arises naturally, then advanced civilizations should have had ample time to spread. Even traveling at sublight speeds, a determined species could, in theory, colonize the galaxy in just a few million years, an eye blink compared to cosmic history. And yet, as far as we can tell, Earth remains untouched. Our radio telescopes detect no engineered signals, and our probes find no alien artifacts. On one side stands mathematical probability, embodied by the Drake equation and modern exoplanet discoveries. With so many worlds and so much time, the odds appear overwhelming that life, and intelligent life, should exist elsewhere. To deny it feels almost arrogant, as though we believe ourselves uniquely blessed in a cosmos designed for diversity. Each newly discovered Earth-like planet deepens the sense that the universe ought to be teeming with neighbors. On the other side stands observational emptiness. We have surveyed millions of stars with radio telescopes, searched for fleeting laser flashes, scanned for megastructures that might dim starlight. Nothing. No clear signals, no evidence of galactic engineering, no unambiguous trace of advanced life. Our probes have wandered the solar system and found barren silence. Even in our own cosmic backyard, the skies remain hauntingly quiet. The great silence confronts us with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Perhaps intelligent life is rare, arising only under extraordinary conditions. Perhaps civilizations bloom briefly and then extinguish themselves before spreading. Perhaps life is common, but communication is not alien, and minds might be uninterested in talking, or their methods incomprehensible to us. Or perhaps they are here, hidden in ways we cannot detect, their presence obscured by distance, scale, or deliberate choice. The silence does not resolve these questions, it amplifies them. Philosophically, the great silence cuts to the heart of our self-perception. If we are alone, then humanity is not one among many, but the sole carrier of consciousness in a vast, indifferent universe. That uniqueness can feel exhilarating. Our place becomes precious, our responsibilities immense, but it can also feel terrifying, for it leaves us without peers in the cosmos. If we are not alone, then the silence becomes equally haunting. It suggests barriers, dangers, or differences so profound that communication is impossible. Either way, the paradox forces us to confront our cosmic vulnerability. In literature and film, the great silence has become a motif of unease. From Stanisław Lem's Solaris to Carl Sagan's Contact, the absence of clear communication becomes itself the mystery, a canvas for projection. Are we listening in the wrong way? Are we too early or too late to join a galactic community? Or is silence the final truth? Ultimately, the great silence is not just about astrophysics. It is about expectation colliding with emptiness. The numbers tell us we should not be alone. Our instruments tell us we are. Between probability and observation lies the paradox that continues to define humanity's search. A universe that seems fertile for life, yet answers us with nothing but silence. Why first? Matters imagine for a moment that humanity is truly the first intelligent species in the galaxy. The thought electrifies and unsettles in equal measure. On one hand, it suggests that we are pioneers, unique, unprecedented, bearers of a consciousness that no other star system has yet produced. On the other, it burdens us with responsibility, almost beyond comprehension. To be first is to hold the fragile torch of intelligence in a cosmos where it might otherwise never burn. Pride and burden become inseparable. The emotional weight of being first is profound. For centuries, we assumed we were not alone. Ancient myths filled the heavens with gods, spirits, and celestial neighbors. Modern science multiplied those hopes with exoplanets and probabilities. To discover instead that we are the beginning, not the inheritors, would force us to redefine ourselves. We would not be latecomers to a galactic community. We would be its founders, responsible for carrying awareness into the dark. Pride swells at the thought. We are the cutting edge of cosmic evolution, the universe waking up to itself through us, yet pride easily turns to dread. If we are first, then survival becomes everything. There are no elders to guide us, no examples to follow, no allies to lean on. The future of intelligence, perhaps the only intelligence in the galaxy, rests entirely on our choices. Every war, every ecological collapse, every moment of neglect risks extinguishing something irreplaceable. The burden of being first is knowing that failure does not only end us, it ends the story of consciousness in this corner of the cosmos. Philosophically, this reframes human history. Our inventions, struggles, and even our mistakes become part of a narrative larger than ourselves. To be first means our role is not local, but cosmic. The arts, sciences, and cultures we create are not just human achievements. They are the universe's first attempt to know itself. Carl Sagan once said, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." If we are first, then we are the only such way for now. That knowledge magnifies both meaning and responsibility. There is also an existential paradox in being first. On the surface, it can feel empowering. The galaxy is open, waiting, unshaped. No predecessors limit us, no rivals compete. But this freedom can feel like loneliness stretched to infinity. To be first is to stand at the frontier of a vast wilderness, unsure if anyone will ever follow. It demands courage not only to survive but to flourish in isolation, carrying the hope that others may one day emerge. Culturally, the idea of being first appears in stories of explorers and settlers, from ancient navigators crossing oceans to astronauts walking on the moon. Humanity celebrates those who step where no one has stepped before. But cosmic firstness dwarfs even these feats. It is not crossing a sea or a planet, but inaugurating intelligence on a galactic scale. The metaphor of exploration becomes literal and existential. The galaxy is an uncharted ocean, and we are the first ship to set sail. Yet perhaps the deepest reason first matters is that it confronts us with choice. If we are not the inheritors of wisdom, but its origin, then we must decide what kind of civilization to become. Do we scatter recklessly, risking self-destruction before we leave our cradle? Or do we build carefully, ensuring that when others eventually arise, they will find not ruins, but legacies? Being first means recognizing that our destiny is not only ours, it may shape the destiny of all who come after. In the end, the notion of being first intertwines exhilaration with terror. It flatters us with significance while pressing us with responsibility. To be first is to be fragile, powerful, alone, and essential all at once. Pride whispers that we are pioneers. Burden reminds us that pioneers can vanish. Together, they form the paradoxical weight of what it might mean to be the galaxy's first voice in the silence. The scale of the universe. When contemplating whether we are alone in the universe, numbers quickly become both our strongest argument for life and our sharpest reminder of emptiness. The cosmos is vast beyond comprehension. The observable universe contains at least 2 trillion galaxies. Each galaxy may house hundreds of billions of stars. Around those stars orbit untold trillion of planets. By any reasonable measure, the sheer scale suggests that life should not only exist, but should be common. And yet, against this statistical backdrop, the silence remains deafening. Modern astronomy has sharpened these probabilities with precision. In recent decades, exoplanet surveys, particularly from the Kepler Space Telescope, have shown that planets are not rare quirks of stellar systems, but the rule. Almost every star likely has companions. Estimates suggest that in our galaxy alone there may be as many as 40 billion Earth-sized planets in habitable zones where liquid water could exist. These numbers shift the question from "is there another Earth?" to "how could there not be thousands, even million?" The Drake equation, proposed in 1961 by Frank Drake, sought to quantify this intuition. It multiplies factors: the rate of star formation, the fraction with planets, the number of habitable worlds, the likelihood of life arising, the probability of intelligence evolving, and the lifespan of communicating civilization. The beauty of the equation is not in precision, it relies heavily on guesses, but in framing the problem. Even with conservative estimates, the odds often suggest that civilizations should number in the thousands across the galaxy. Mathematically, it feels improbable, even absurd, that we are alone. But the same numbers that inspire hope also confront
us with emptiness. Light travels fast but not infinite, and space is staggeringly wide.
Even if civilizations exist, they may be scattered so sparsely that their signals have not yet reached us, or their methods of communication may be unrecognizable. 1 trillion stars may burn, yet across those light years, we receive nothing but static. Probability promises abundance, observation delivers silence. This tension fuels the Fermi paradox, the expectation of many neighbors colliding with the absence of evidence. The paradox sharpens as our instruments improve. Each new telescope confirms the abundance of planets. Each radio array expands our listening. Each year lengthens the timeline during which signals could have arrived. Still, no clear message. The numbers grow more optimistic, while the silence grows heavier. One way to resolve the tension is to adjust the equation. Perhaps some factors are vanishingly small. The chance of life emerging, the odds of intelligence evolving, or the lifespan of civilization. The last factor may be especially sobering if technological species tend to destroy themselves quickly. Then the galaxy may be littered with worlds where life arose but could not endure. The numbers still suggest possibility, but survival may be the bottleneck. Another resolution shifts focus to scale. With trillions of planets, the odds of life somewhere are high, but the odds of life nearby, within the narrow radius where we can detect or communicate, may be far lower. The universe may be teeming with microbes, but sparse in minds. Or advanced civilizations may be spread so thinly across light years that contact is effectively impossible. The math still supports life, it just doesn't guarantee neighbors within shouting distance. Ultimately, the numbers game reveals both our optimism and our fragility. We crave reassurance that we are not alone, and probability gives it in abundance. But probability is not proof. Until signals arrive or probes encounter something alive, numbers remain promises waiting for fulfillment. The cosmos may indeed be crowded with life, but the distances, the lifespans, and the silence remind us that probability does not erase loneliness. In the end, the statistics are both comforting and cruel. Comforting because they insist life elsewhere is likely, cruel because they offer no guarantee we will ever find it. The numbers suggest company. The silence leaves us wondering if, against all odds, we are the only ones counting habitable zones and exoplanets. If the numbers suggest life should be common, the next question is, where exactly should we look? For decades, astronomers have framed the search through the concept of the habitable zone, sometimes called the Goldilocks zone. It is the orbital band around a star where conditions are not too hot and not too cold, but just right for liquid water to persist on a planet's surface. Water, as far as we know, is essential for life, and so the Goldilocks zone has become a cosmic shorthand for potential fertility. This idea is both simple and profound. Venus orbits too close to the Sun, baking under a runaway greenhouse effect. Mars lies too far, a frozen desert with only traces of ancient rivers. Earth occupies the narrow band in between, where oceans thrive and life flourishes. If life can exist here, why not on other worlds circling other suns within similar zones? The logic is persuasive, and modern astronomy has tested it with dazzling success. The Kepler Space Telescope, launched in 2009, revolutionized our understanding of planets beyond the solar system. By monitoring the tiny dimming of starlight as planets transited their stars, Kepler revealed that planets are ubiquitous. Thousands were discovered, and from this sample, astronomers extrapolated that there may be billions of Earth-sized planets in habitable zones within our galaxy. Suddenly, the Goldilocks metaphor was no longer just theory, it was a statistical certainty. The search has since grown more precise. With the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, astronomers can now analyze the atmospheres of some exoplanets, peering into their chemical signatures, detecting gases like oxygen, methane, or carbon dioxide in unusual proportions could hint at biological processes. Already, tantalizing data are emerging: strange atmospheres that defy easy explanation, hazy clouds concealing oceans below, super-Earths and mini-Neptunes that challenge our categories. Each discovery blurs the line between sterile and fertile, suggesting nature is more inventive than our simple models of habitability. Yet the Goldilocks concept, while useful, is not sufficient. A planet in the right zone may still be lifeless, scorched by flares from an unstable star, stripped of atmosphere by radiation, or locked in tidal embrace so that one hemisphere burns while the other freezes. Conversely, life might thrive outside the just right zone, beneath the icy crusts of Europa or Enceladus, far beyond the Sun's habitable band. Liquid oceans persist thanks to internal heating. Life there, if it exists, would challenge our anthropocentric assumptions about habitability. This contrast between sterile worlds and fertile ones is central to the search. For every Earth-like candidate, there may be countless barren rock. Even within the Goldilocks band, conditions must align with exquisite precision: the right atmosphere, the right chemistry, the right balance between stability and change. We are reminded that habitability is a spectrum, not a guarantee. The cosmos may scatter seeds widely, but not all soils nurture growth. Philosophically, the hunt for habitable zones carries symbolic weight. It reflects our longing to find echoes of home. Each candidate planet we discover is a mirror, a reminder that Earth is not unique in its physical properties, though it may be rare in its flourishing. The excitement of each new exoplanet announcement is not just scientific, it is emotional. We want to believe that fertile worlds are out there, waiting, perhaps already alive. At the same time, the silence persists. Kepler and JWST have multiplied. Possibilities, but not certainties. We see candidates, but not confirmations of life. The Goldilocks metaphor remains a guide, not a discovery. The fertile may still be drowned in the sterile, abundance in possibility masking absence in reality, and yet hope endures. Each planet in the habitable zone is a promise, a whisper across light years that Earth may not be alone. Whether these worlds are barren or blooming, the search itself affirms something essential about us. We are creatures who cannot help but look outward, seeking signs that the cosmos, like Earth, can cradle life. The cosmic time scale. When asking whether we are alone, it is not enough to count planets or scan habitable zones. We must also place ourselves within the timeline of the universe. The cosmos is 13.8 billion years old. Earth formed only 4.5 billion years ago. Human civilization in any recognizable form is just a few thousand years old, a thin sliver at the end of an immense span. Against such a backdrop, our presence is almost vanishingly brief. This perspective shifts the question of extraterrestrial life from space to time. If intelligent civilizations can arise, they may have had billions of years to appear before us. Many stars in the Milky Way are older than the Sun by billions of years. Their planets, if habitable, could have nurtured life long before Earth's crust had cooled. If evolution favors complexity, there has been ample time for civilizations to bloom, flourish, and perhaps vanish. On the cosmic clock, we are latecomers, blinking awake in the final second of a long day. This realization cuts two ways. On one hand, it strengthens the argument that others must exist. If we could emerge so recently, then surely others had opportunities earlier. Entire histories may have played out before we lit our first fires. Perhaps vast cultures rose and fell, their
legacies erased by time, their signals long faded before we even began listening.
We may be children arriving late to a party that has already ended. On the other hand, our youth may explain the silence. If civilizations are rare, perhaps we are among the first, not the last. The cosmos may have waited nearly 14 billion years for intelligence to arise, and humanity represents its first fragile experiment. This possibility reframes the great silence not as absence but as anticipation. We are too early to hear the chorus. standing in a universe still largely mute. The cosmic timescale also exposes how precarious our moment is. Civilizations may emerge, but how long can they last? Dinosaurs ruled Earth for over 150 million years, yet left no technology, no message to the stars. Our technological age has lasted barely a century. Will it endure for millennia, long enough to become detectable, or will it collapse quickly as many fear through self-destruction or environmental catastrophe? In a universe this ancient, the greatest filter may not be the rise of life, but the persistence of civilization. From another angle, the timescale highlights how little we have seen. Our radio signals have traveled just about 100 light-years, a tiny bubble in a galaxy 100,000 light-years across. Even if civilizations exist, the odds that they overlap with our brief technological moment and lie within our small detectable sphere may be slim. We are infants shouting into the void, expecting an answer from civilizations that may be long dead, not yet born, or simply too far away. Philosophically, the cosmic timescale humbles and inspires. It reminds us that our struggles, our empires, even our species are momentary flashes, yet it also suggests that consciousness itself is part of a larger story, one that unfolds over eons, not decades. To see ourselves as young is not to diminish us, but to frame us as participants in a journey still beginning. If we endure, we may one day be the ancient civilization others wonder about, the mysterious silence that puzzles species yet to come. In the end, the timescale shifts perspective. We may not yet have met others, not because they do not exist, but because time itself is vast and uneven. The galaxy may have hosted countless lives already gone, or may be waiting for many more to arise. Humanity's youth is both a disadvantage and a gift. We have missed much, but we have everything still ahead. To place ourselves in the cosmic timeline is to accept that the story is far larger than us, and that our role, however brief, is part of a universe still writing itself. The Fermi Paradox. In the summer of 1950, over lunch at Los Alamos, physicist Enrico Fermi posed a deceptively simple question that still echoes through astronomy and philosophy. Where is everybody? Surrounded by colleagues discussing flying saucers and interstellar travel, Fermi cut through speculation with a stark paradox. If the galaxy is old, vast, and filled with billions of stars, many with habitable planets, then intelligent life should
already be here. Civilization should have spread, leaving traces, signals, or artifacts. And yet, despite our searching, there is only silence. Fermi's question became the foundation of what is now called the Fermi Paradox. On one side is expectation.
The numbers almost demand that life be common. With 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe and the Milky Way alone boasting hundreds of billions of stars, it seems improbable that Earth is the sole cradle of intelligence. Add to this the billions of years available for civilizations to arise, and the probability appears overwhelming. On the other side lies observation, emptiness. We see no alien megastructures dimming stars, no fleets of probes sweeping through the solar system, no unmistakable radio signals crossing the void. Our instruments are more sensitive than ever, and our surveys more thorough, yet they confirm the same unsettling truth. If others exist, they remain invisible. The expectation of abundance collides with the reality of absence, sharpening the paradox into a question not just of science, but of meaning. Part of the tension lies in time. Even at modest fractions of light speed, a determined civilization could theoretically colonize the entire galaxy within a few million years, an instant compared to its 13 billion year age. If life emerges easily, why has no one arrived? Why no galactic empires, no evidence of interstellar engineering? Fermi's question is not only about signals, but about presence. If they were here, we should know, but they are not. This silence unsettles us because it undermines intuition. Human reasoning expects the universe to mirror Earth's patterns. Life appeared quickly here, so it should appear quickly elsewhere. Intelligence arose here, so it should arise again. Yet the absence of evidence forces us to consider alternatives. Perhaps life is rare, intelligence rarer, and technology fleeting. Perhaps civilizations burn bright and brief, extinguished before spreading. Or perhaps the cosmos teems with life that chooses not to reveal itself, living in ways we cannot detect or comprehend. Philosophically, Fermi's challenge cuts deeper. It asks not only about aliens, but about us. If the silence is permanent, humanity carries the weight of being alone, the only conscious witness to the universe. If others exist but remain hidden, then we must ask why, whether by choice, by limitation, or by danger. Either possibility unsettles because both confront us with our vulnerability. The paradox reflects not just a scientific puzzle, but an existential mirror. In searching for others, we reveal our longing for company, for reassurance that we are not isolated in the dark. In culture and science fiction, the question, where is everybody, resonates as both mystery and warning. Works from 2001, A Space Odyssey to The Three-Body Problem, explore scenarios where civilizations exist but remain distant, hostile, or indifferent. Each story reflects our anxieties about what discovery or its absence would mean. Expectation fuels hope. Silence fuels dread. The paradox itself becomes the story. Ultimately, Fermi's question endures because it refuses resolution. It balances on the knife edge between probability and emptiness, between hope and despair. We do not know where everybody is. Perhaps they
are nowhere. Perhaps they are everywhere, but invisible. The silence is both explanation and enigma. And in that silence, humanity is left to wonder whether the absence of others is the universe's final answer or merely a pause before the first.
Voice breaks through filters and barriers. If the universe is fertile ground for life, why does it seem so empty? One sobering explanation is known as the Great Filter. The idea that somewhere along the path from lifeless matter to galactic civilization lies a nearly insurmountable barrier. Life may arise often, but something prevents it from progressing to intelligence, or prevents intelligence from spreading among the stars. The filter could be behind us, ahead of us, or both, and where it lies may determine our fate. The optimistic view is that the filter lies in the past. Perhaps the leap from chemistry to biology is exceedingly rare. Maybe Earth's early spark primitive cells emerging in warm ponds or deep-sea vents was an extraordinary fluke. Or perhaps the transition from single-cell to multicellular organisms, or from animals to intelligent tool users, is so improbable that it happens once in a trillion worlds. If so, then humanity is precious beyond measure, the rare exception that slipped through the filter. The silence of the stars would not signal doom, but affirmation that we are extraordinary survivors in a universe where complexity usually stalls. The darker possibility is that the filter lies ahead. Civilizations may arise often, but something almost always destroys them before they mature into galaxy-spanning powers. The possibilities are grimly familiar: nuclear war, ecological collapse, runaway artificial intelligence, or cosmic accidents like asteroid impacts or gamma-ray bursts. The silence may be the graveyard of countless civilizations, each rising briefly before succumbing to forces they could not control. If so, then humanity's current era is precarious. We may be approaching the same barrier that extinguished others. Between these extremes lies the unsettling recognition that we cannot yet know. The discovery of even simple microbial life beyond Earth would be a profound clue. If Mars, Europa, or Enceladus harbors life, then the leap from chemistry to biology cannot be rare. That would shift the filter forward, suggesting the real danger lies ahead in the survival of intelligence. Conversely, if the cosmos proves utterly barren, it may mean that the early steps are almost impossible and that we are the improbable victors, having already passed the greatest hurdle. Philosophically, the Great Filter forces us to wrestle with optimism and fatalism. The optimistic framing exalts humanity's uniqueness, casting us as a miraculous spark in a mostly silent universe. The fatalistic framing turns the silence into an omen, a warning that intelligence may carry within it the seeds of its own destruction. Both perspectives burden us with responsibility. If we are rare, we must protect what is irreplaceable. If doom looms ahead, we must learn to defy it. Culturally, the filter has become a metaphor for our anxieties. In science fiction, from Battlestar Galactica to The Expanse, civilizations teeter on the edge of collapse, undone by their own hubris or external catastrophe. These narratives dramatize the fear that the universe is not empty because life fails to begin, but because intelligence fails to endure. The very traits that enable progress, curiosity, ambition, power, may also hasten destruction. Yet the idea of barriers is not only bleak, it also sharpens our sense of urgency. If the filter lies ahead, then survival becomes our greatest challenge and achievement. It demands wisdom, cooperation, and restraint. It reframes progress not as inevitable, but as fragile. In confronting the possibility of barriers, we may find the motivation to avoid them. Ultimately, the great filter is less an answer than a mirror. It does not tell us why the universe is silent, but it forces us to face the stakes of our existence. Are we rare, survivors of improbable beginnings, or fragile pioneers doomed to repeat a universal pattern of collapse? The silence leaves us uncertain. But within that uncertainty lies a challenge to ensure that humanity does not become another voice lost to the void. The zoo hypothesis and beyond. If the stars should be alive with civilizations, yet remain silent, perhaps the answer is not absence, but restraint. This is the core of the zoo hypothesis, the idea that extraterrestrials exist but choose not to reveal themselves. Like zookeepers observing animals, they may be watching us from a distance, careful not to interfere until we are ready. To some, this notion comforts. To others, it unsettles. It shifts the great silence from emptiness to deliberate concealment. The benign interpretation frames the universe as patient. Advanced civilizations, vastly older and wiser than us, may practice a form of cosmic non-interference. They could be waiting for humanity to reach a threshold, technological maturity, interstellar travel, or moral stability before making contact. In this view, the silence is protective, allowing us to develop without premature influence. Just as we might refrain from teaching algebra to toddlers, they refrain from overwhelming us with truths we are not prepared to absorb. The silence becomes a gesture of care, but the same metaphor can take a darker turn. Zoos may preserve, but they also confine. If we are being watched, perhaps we are not equals in waiting, but specimens under control. The absence of communication might signal not respect, but indifference, or worse, manipulation. Could civilizations be curating what we see, concealing their presence deliberately, maintaining Earth as an isolated experiment? This possibility evokes unease, raising the specter of cosmic paternalism or even surveillance without consent. Beyond the zoo lie further speculation. Some argue for the planetarium hypothesis, which suggests that advanced beings actively disguise the universe to appear empty, much as a planetarium projects an artificial sky. In this scenario, the silence is not natural, but engineered, a deception designed to keep us ignorant of the larger reality. Others imagine a simulation framework where the absence of aliens reflects not cosmic emptiness but programming constraints. If our universe is simulated, perhaps only Earth was coded for complexity, while the rest is backdrop. There are also sociological explanations. Civilizations may adopt a policy of cosmic quarantine, fearing contamination, cultural, biological, or technological. Our history on Earth gives ample reason. When advanced societies encounter less advanced ones, the results are often catastrophic for the latter. If extraterrestrials have learned from such mistakes, they may practice a strict silence, ensuring that younger species evolve independently. The zoo then becomes less cage than safeguard, albeit one that denies us participation in the wider cosmos. Philosophically, these ideas force us to confront questions of trust and autonomy. If others are watching, are we children under guidance or captives under control? If silence is chosen, What criteria define readiness? Would humanity recognize itself as ready, or would that judgment always belong to those beyond us? The zoo hypothesis unsettles because it removes agency. We are not alone, yet we are powerless to initiate contact. In culture and fiction, the hypothesis thrives because it mirrors familiar anxieties, from Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End, where humanity is guided by hidden overseers, to modern films exploring surveillance and secrecy. The theme resonates with our ambivalence toward authority. We yearn for guidance but fear domination. We crave company but resent control. The silence of the cosmos becomes a screen onto which we project these conflicting desires. Ultimately, the zoo hypothesis and its variants remind us that silence does not always mean absence. It could mean patience, protection, manipulation, or concealment. Each possibility reflects our own values more than alien intentions, for we cannot know what motives would guide species millions of years older than us. Whether the silence is benign neglect or deliberate hiding, the result is the same. We remain in the dark, wondering if the universe is quiet or simply quieting itself for reasons beyond our comprehension. The possibility of being first. Perhaps the great silence does not mean we are alone, nor that civilizations inevitably collapse. Perhaps it means something subtler, that intelligence is only now beginning to stir across the cosmos. In this view, the universe has spent billions of years preparing the stage, and we, along with countless others, are among the first to step into the light. What looks like emptiness may actually be a dawn. The age of the universe is 13.8 billion years, but for most of that time the conditions for life were harsh. In the early epochs, stars were poor in heavy elements, producing little of the carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen that complex life requires. Galaxies were turbulent, radiation fierce, impacts frequent. Only after billions of years of stellar alchemy did the raw materials for biology become abundant. In cosmic terms, habitable planets may be a recent luxury, not an ancient standard. If so, the silence may not reflect absence, but lateness. The universe is just now becoming fertile enough for mine. Seen this way, humanity's appearance is not out of place but perfectly timed. Earth formed in a relatively quiet corner of the galaxy after earlier generations of stars had enriched space with metals and minerals. Life arose swiftly here, but intelligence took billions of years to emerge, suggesting that evolution toward complexity is slow, not guaranteed. If our timeline is typical, then many other worlds may only now be approaching their own technological dawn. The silence would then be the hush before a chorus, not the echo of extinction. This idea reframes the paradox of expectation versus emptiness. If civilizations are young everywhere, then of course we have not yet encountered them. The galaxy may be filled with species still at the stage of cave paintings, stone tools, or early agriculture. Others may just be kindling their first sparks of electricity, sending their first signals into the dark. Our listening has covered mere decades, a blink in cosmic time. Expecting to hear a galaxy of voices may be like expecting a library to be loud at the very moment books are first being written. The dawn hypothesis carries both relief and responsibility. Relief because it softens the fear that advanced civilizations inevitably destroy themselves. If intelligence is rare not because it fails but because it is new, then our survival is not necessarily doomed. Responsibility because being among the first means our actions will shape the character of galactic intelligence. How we handle technology, environment, and expansion may set precedents echoed across the stars. We may not have elders, but we may one day be elders to others. Philosophically, the idea of a cosmic dawn highlights the fragility and wonder of our moment. We are accustomed to seeing ourselves as latecomers to a vast and ancient story. Instead, we might be participants in its opening chapter. This reverses the emotional weight of the great silence. Loneliness becomes anticipation. Emptiness becomes potential. The silence itself becomes sacred, the quiet before voices rise. In fiction and culture, this framing appears as the galactic kindergarten idea, civilizations scattered across space, each slowly awakening, unaware of one another. Science fiction often imagines the eventual meeting of these fledgling species, the tentative beginnings of communication and cooperation. What is striking is how often these stories portray such encounters not as conquests but as first conversations, fragile and hopeful. They echo our own longing to hear and to be heard. Ultimately, the notion of a cosmic dawn reminds us that silence need not equal despair. It may instead mark a threshold. Intelligence could be a recent phenomenon, and we, far from being alone, may stand at the beginning of a great unfolding. The galaxy is quiet not because no one else exists, but because the chorus of minds is only now beginning to sing. The fragility of beginnings. If intelligence across the cosmos is only now emerging, then we stand in a precarious place, the fragile dawn of awareness, vulnerable to extinction before it has the chance to spread. Beginnings are beautiful, but they are also dangerous. Just as a sapling can be crushed long before it becomes a forest, so too can civilizations perish before they establish roots in the galaxy. The silence we hear may not signal absence, but the countless extinctions of beginnings that never endured. On Earth, our own history testifies to fragility. Humanity's technological age has lasted scarcely a century, a blink compared to the billions of years behind us. In that span, we have unlocked the power of the atom, reshaped ecosystems, and built tools capable of both sustaining and destroying civilization. Nuclear arsenals remain poised as global threats. Climate change destabilizes the environment on which our societies depend. Pandemics, whether natural or engineered, remind us of biological vulnerability. These dangers illustrate how easily a young civilization can stumble, ending not with conquest or catastrophe from without, but with collapse from within. The cosmos may be littered with such tragedies. Imagine worlds where species discovered fire but never agriculture, where industrial revolutions collapsed under resource depletion, where fragile biospheres unraveled before intelligence could spread beyond them. The Great Silence may echo with the ghosts of civilizations that reached for the stars but faltered too soon. For every society that survives, perhaps countless others vanish, extinguished by their own fragility before they can leave a lasting mark. Yet fragility does not mean inevitability. Beginnings, though delicate, hold possibility. The fact that we are here at all proves resilience. Life endured mass extinctions, asteroid impacts, and ice ages. Humanity survived wars, plagues, and near starvation to arrive at this moment. Each beginning carries within it the seeds of endurance. The question is whether we can nurture those seeds long enough to grow beyond vulnerability. Survival, however, demands foresight. A species must recognize its fragility to guard against it. That recognition may be rare, which is why so few civilizations endure. On Earth, we are only beginning to grapple with long-term risks, safeguarding ecosystems, developing sustainable technologies, creating systems of cooperation that transcend national rivalries. These are not just political or ethical issues, they may be survival strategies for species attempting to pass through the narrow window of fragility. Philosophically, the fragility of beginnings forces us to reflect on hope and responsibility. Hope, because fragility implies potential. A civilization can survive if it learns, adapts, and chooses wisely. Responsibility, because failure carries immense cost. If we are among the first minds in the galaxy, then our extinction would not merely erase us. It would erase a unique chance for the cosmos to know itself. The weight of beginnings is heavy precisely because the future depends upon them. In literature, this theme often appears as warning. From Mary Shelley's The Last Man to modern dystopias, stories imagine humanity undone by plague, hubris, or war before it spreads beyond Earth. Yet fiction also offers visions of endurance, interstellar voyages, thriving colonies, civilizations that overcome fragility to flourish among the stars. These contrasting narratives reflect the tension between fear and hope, the recognition that beginnings are fragile but not doomed. Ultimately, to consider the fragility of beginnings is to accept that silence may be temporary. Civilizations may fall, but some may endure. Perhaps we are among them. The dawn is dangerous, yes, but it is also full of promise. To survive is to carry intelligence through its most vulnerable stage, into maturity, and eventually into the stars. If we succeed, we will not only defy extinction but honor the fragile beginnings that came before us, and perhaps pave the way for those yet to come. Section 4.3. Responsibility of the first. If the silence of the universe means that we are among the first intelligent beings to emerge, then our role extends beyond survival. It becomes a question of responsibility. To be first is not simply to exist, it is to carry the weight of representing intelligence itself, to set a precedent for what consciousness in the cosmos can be. The stakes are no longer limited to our own prosperity. They extend to the very character of a galaxy just awakening to thought. On one level, humanity can ignore this weight. We could pursue self-interest alone, consume resources, expand recklessly, treat survival as the only goal. This path reflects an instinct as old as life itself: preserve, reproduce, dominate. Yet if we are truly first, this approach may impoverish not only us but the future. The legacy we leave would not be a flourishing of minds, but a cautionary tale of waste and short-sightedness. In a universe where intelligence is rare, to squander it is a moral failure on a cosmic scale. The alternative is stewardship, the recognition that being first confers responsibility. We are not only caretakers of Earth, but potential caretakers
of intelligence itself. Stewardship requires restraint as much as ambition.
It asks us to preserve biodiversity, to safeguard ecosystems, to develop technologies that sustain rather than destroy. It asks us to treat space not as a playground for exploitation, but as a shared frontier whose future may include others. If civilizations after us emerge, they may inherit the structures we build, the values we enshrine, the pathways we open. What kind of inheritance do we want to leave? History offers cautionary parallels. When humans explored new lands, contact often led to conquest, exploitation, and devastation. If we carry those same patterns into the stars, then being first means exporting not wisdom, but harm. Stewardship, by contrast, invites humility, to act not as conquerors but as participants in a larger unfolding, aware that our choices ripple outward in ways we cannot predict. Philosophically, this responsibility reframes freedom. To be first is to hold immense power, but also immense accountability. We are free to destroy ourselves or to become guardians of possibility. The paradox is that freedom only acquires meaning through responsibility. Without stewardship, freedom collapses into self-destruction. With stewardship, it becomes the foundation of endurance. The Great Silence, viewed this way, is less a mystery than a summon. It calls us not merely to wonder about others, but to decide what kind of civilization we will become in their absence. Culturally, stories echo this theme, from Asimov's visions of galactic empires to Clarke's portrayals of guided evolution. Science fiction often wrestles with the burden of the first. Some narratives show humanity failing, consumed by hubris. Others imagine us rising to the challenge, becoming mentors to younger species, architects of a galactic community. These stories resonate because they mirror our own uncertainty. Will we treat being first as an opportunity for wisdom or as a chance for unchecked power? Practically, responsibility begins with survival, but it does not end there. It extends to how we handle artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, planetary stewardship, and interstellar exploration. Each decision becomes not merely a human choice, but a cosmic precedent. If we are first, then what we normalize cooperation or conflict, sustainability or collapse, may define the trajectory of minds across the galaxy. In the end, the responsibility of being first is both daunting and ennobling. It burdens us with the knowledge that failure would erase something irreplaceable, but it also grants us the privilege of shaping the future in ways no species has before. Self-interest tempts us to turn inward. Stewardship demands we look outward, imagining not only our survival but the flourishing of intelligence itself. If we are first, then our duty is clear: to live wisely enough that when others finally awaken, they inherit not silence and ruin, but a cosmos where thought has already begun to honor its own potential. Alternative explanations for silence. When we imagine extraterrestrial life, we inevitably imagine ourselves perhaps with minor variations: green skin, extra limbs, larger eyes. Even in science fiction, where creativity abounds, aliens often remain echoes of humanity. Yet what if the Great Silence is not a silence at all, but a failure of recognition? What if other beings exist but are so alien that we cannot perceive them as life? The universe may be full of neighbors, yet hidden from us by the limits of our imagination. Our assumptions are rooted in anthropocentrism. We look for carbon-based organisms, liquid water, Earth-like atmospheres. We expect eyes that see light, ears that hear sound, brains that process information through neurons. But these are the products of one planet's evolutionary history, not universal blueprints. On other worlds, life might emerge from chemistries we have barely considered: silicon instead of carbon, ammonia instead of water, plasma clouds instead of flesh. Such forms may not metabolize, reproduce, or communicate in ways we recognize. They might live on timescales of millennia, perceiving us as brief flashes, too fleeting to notice. Even the concept of intelligence may be parochial. We measure minds by language, tools, and technology. But what if cognition flourishes in forms we would never classify as thought? A planetary biosphere might act as a distributed intelligence, with forests, oceans, or microbial colonies functioning as vast neural networks. To us, these would seem inert ecosystems, not conscious being. Our failure to recognize them would not mean they do not exist. It would mean our criteria for intelligence are too narrow. Communication presents another barrier. We search for radio signals, laser pulses, or mathematical pattern. But what if communication is biological, not technological? Pheromones released across atmospheres, chemical codes embedded in oceans, magnetic pulses resonating through planetary cores. Even if signals reach us, they may be incomprehensible, embedded in logics and contexts we cannot decode. To a whale's song, humans once heard only noise. To a truly alien signal, we may hear nothing at all. The possibility of radical otherness reframes the Great Silence. It may not be silence, but incomprehension. The galaxy could be buzzing with activity invisible to our instruments and inconceivable to our mind. This interpretation is unsettling because it undermines the comforting idea that intelligence is universal and convergent. Instead, it suggests we may remain permanently isolated, not by distance, but by difference. Philosophically, this challenges our self-image. We like to imagine ourselves as participants in a cosmic dialogue, future, members of a galactic community. But if others are too alien, that community may never exist. Our anthropocentric hopes for conversation, exchange, recognition might be illusions. The universe could teem with beings, yet humanity would still be alone, unable to bridge the gulf
of otherness. Culturally, the theme of incomprehensible aliens recurs as both fascination and fear.
From Lovecraft's cosmic horrors to Stanisław Lem's Solaris, stories imagine encounters where communication fails, where the alien resists assimilation into human categories. These narratives resonate because they capture a deeper truth. Difference is not always bridgeable. Sometimes mystery remains. Yet radical otherness also invites humility. Perhaps our role is not to demand familiarity, but to expand imagination. Just as Earth's biodiversity continually surprises us, creatures thriving in acid pools, microbes metabolizing arsenic, life persisting in the vacuum of space, so too might the universe surprise us with possibilities beyond our frameworks. By loosening our anthropocentrism, we may prepare ourselves to recognize the alien when it finally emerges. In the end, the idea that they are too alien does not diminish the mystery of the cosmos. It deepens it. The silence may not be absence but difference, a reminder that life's possibilities exceed our comprehension. To confront that possibility is to accept both our limits and our potential, because we may never truly know the other potential. Because in imagining radical otherness, we stretch the horizons of what it means to be alive at all. They are too far, If aliens exist, perhaps the problem is not that they are absent or incomprehensible, but simply that they
are too far away.
Space is vast in ways our everyday intuition cannot grasp, and its immensity imposes barriers as real as any great filter. Even if life thrives across the galaxy, distance and the speed of light may ensure that civilizations remain isolated, like islands in a cosmic ocean too wide to cross. At first glance, the stars seem close. On a clear night, the Milky Way appears crowded, its glittering clouds suggesting intimacy. But this is an illusion of perspective. The nearest star system, Alpha Centauri, is over 4 light-years away, 40 trillion kilometers. Our fastest spacecraft would take tens of thousands of years to reach it, and Alpha Centauri is just next door. The galaxy spans 100,000 light-years, and the observable universe stretches across 93 billion. These scales dwarf both our technology and our imagination. Communication faces the same obstacle. Radio waves travel at light speed, but even they take years to bridge the smallest gaps. A message sent to Alpha Centauri would take 4 years to arrive, and 4 more to return a conversation slower than human history itself. To reach the other side of the galaxy would require signals traveling for 100,000 years, longer than civilization has existed. The simple act of saying hello across cosmic distances becomes an almost impossible undertaking. This distance transforms the Fermi paradox into something less mysterious. Perhaps civilizations are out there but so far away that their signals have not yet reached us, or ours have not reached them. Humanity has been broadcasting into space for barely a century, creating a bubble of detectability only 100 light-years wide. That bubble encompasses a mere fraction of the galaxy, a local whisper in a cosmic cathedral. Expecting an answer already may be like shouting into a canyon and growing impatient before the echo has time to return. Moreover, signals degrade. Stars, quasars, and cosmic noise flood the sky with radiation, drowning weak transmissions. Unless aliens beam powerful, deliberate messages, their signals may fade into static long before reaching us. Even if civilizations try to communicate, their words may dissipate before crossing the distances. To us, the galaxy may seem silent, not because it is mute, but because the voices are lost in the roar of the cosmos. Philosophically, this possibility carries both comfort and melancholy. Comfort, because it suggests we may not be alone, only too far apart to connect. The silence would then reflect geography, not destiny. Melancholy, because it means the dream of interstellar dialogue may never be fulfilled. Civilizations could rise and fall without ever knowing one another, each confined to its own star system, isolated forever by distance. Culturally, we imagine bridges across this gulf. Wormholes, warp drives, and hyperspace populate our stories, offering escape from the tyranny of distance. Yet these remain speculative dreams. The laws of physics, as we know them, hold firm. Nothing outruns light. Until that barrier is broken, if it ever can be, distance may remain the ultimate silent. In the end, they are too far is less an explanation than a reminder of scale. The universe is vast beyond reckoning, and within its immensity, even a crowded galaxy can feel empty. Aliens may thrive on distant worlds, but unless we overcome the barriers of speed and space, their existence will remain invisible to us. The paradox dissolves into geography. The neighbors may exist, but the neighborhood is too large for us ever to meet. They are already gone. Perhaps the reason we find no evidence of extraterrestrials is not because they never existed, but because they no longer do. Civilizations may rise with brilliance, achieve technological power, and then vanish before their presence can ripple far across the galaxy. Against the backdrop of billions of years, even great empires may be fleeting sparks gone before anyone notices. The silence we hear could be the echo of absence, remnants of minds already extinguished. On Earth, we know how fragile civilizations can be. History is a litany of collapses, the fall of Rome, the decline of the Maya, the disappearance of once mighty empires. These were local and partial, but they reveal a pattern. Complexity is difficult to sustain. Environmental strain, resource depletion, internal conflict, or external disaster can undo centuries of progress. Multiply those risks on a cosmic scale, and it becomes easy to imagine civilizations flickering out before spreading beyond their planets. Cosmic time amplifies this fragility. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, while human civilization spans mere thousands of years. If alien civilizations arose millions of years ago, they may have long since perished. Their signals, even if sent, might have faded into static by the time they reached us. Their ruins might lie buried beneath their world's shifting crusts, their stories erased by geological cycles. A galaxy could host countless civilizations across time, yet remain silent in the present because each was gone before contact was possible. This idea reframes the Fermi paradox. It is not that others never existed, but that the overlap between civilizations is vanishingly small. Technological societies may burn brightly for centuries, perhaps millennia, but the distances between stars mean that their lifespans rarely coincide. By the time one species begins broadcasting, another may have already vanished. Contact becomes not just unlikely, but nearly impossible, requiring extraordinary synchronization across billions of years. The possibility that they are already gone is sobering because it mirrors our own vulnerabilities. Nuclear weapons, ecological collapse, runaway technology, pandemics, our threats are as real as any imagined for alien worlds. If civilizations commonly destroy themselves, then the silence is a warning. We too may already be walking the same path. In this framing, absence becomes omen. Yet the same idea can inspire a different perspective. If civilizations perish, then persistence itself becomes extraordinary. Humanity's survival, fragile as it is, carries immense significance. To endure is not trivial but monumental, a defiance of cosmic odds. The very fact that we are here, listening into the silence, may mean that we are unusual, not doomed to quick extinction, but capable of continuity. Our challenge is to prove that possibility true. Culturally, this theme resonates in cautionary tales. From dystopian novels to apocalyptic films, stories envision the collapse of humanity, echoing fears that we will join the ranks of vanished civilization. Yet there are also stories of survival, of rebuilding, of endurance across millennia. Both narratives capture the essence of this hypothesis. Civilizations are fragile, but not fated to fail. Survival requires wisdom, foresight, and resilience. Philosophically, the idea that others may already be gone deepens our sense of solitude, but also our sense of urgency. It reminds us that time is relentless, and that civilizations, no matter how advanced, are temporary unless they actively resist entropy. To search the stars and find nothing may be to glimpse our own possible future, but it may also be to glimpse the importance of choosing differently. In the end, the silence may not mean we are alone forever, but that we are alone now. Others may have come and gone, their voices lost in time's immensity. The question that remains is whether we too will vanish into silence, or whether we will endure long enough to become the ones who break it. Loneliness, consciousness, and meaning. Silence on its own is neutral, a pause in conversation, a quiety. Night in the forest, a moment of stillness can soothe, but on the scale of the cosmos, silence carries a different weight. It is not absence of sound, but absence of presence. When we turn our instruments toward the stars and hear nothing, that void presses against us with existential force. The great silence becomes more than a puzzle of probabilities. It becomes a confrontation with loneliness itself. Throughout history, cultures sought to soften this loneliness with myth. The heavens were populated with gods, spirits, and ancestors. Constellations became stories, filling the sky with meaning. Every culture wove its collective imagination into the stars, ensuring that we were never alone. Even when astronomy stripped away the gods, philosophy offered hope. Epicurus imagined infinite worlds filled with life. Bruno proclaimed innumerable suns with innumerable earths. The cosmos, in myth and speculation, was always alive with company. But modern science, while expanding our horizons, has left us with a starker truth. We now know there are trillions of stars and uncountable planets, Yet still we detect no voices, no signals, no visitors. The telescope reveals abundance in material terms, but abundance without confirmation of life only magnifies the silent. The myths collapse under the weight of data, and the reality that remains feels colder. The universe may not be filled with companions, but with emptiness. This contrast strikes at something primal. Humans are social beings. Our survival has always depended on community. To imagine ourselves as the only minds in the galaxy is to confront a solitude unlike anything we evolved to endure. It is not the loneliness of one person, but the loneliness of an entire species, the possibility that consciousness itself is isolated, a single fragile flame in a cosmic night. The dread of this possibility is sharpened by time. The universe is old. If civilizations were common, we reason some should have reached us by now. Their absence suggests not just distance, but desolation. The longer we search without success, the more the silence feels like verdict rather than a coincidence. Each passing year of static tilts the balance away from hope and toward existential unease. And yet silence also invites reflection. If we are alone, then humanity is not insignificant but unique beyond measure. The universe, vast and indifferent, would nonetheless contain this singular phenomenon. Beings who ask questions, build civilizations, dream of futures. To be unique is terrifying, but it is also awe-inspiring. It means that what we do matters not just for us, but for existence itself. If there is no one else, then we are the sole carriers of consciousness in this corner of the cosmos, the only witnesses, the only storytellers. Still, the weight remains heavy. Collective myths once comforted us by imagining others. Cold reality strips those myths away, forcing us to confront both our fragility and our responsibility. The silence, rather than soothing, becomes a demand. Endure, persist, survive, for if we fail, consciousness itself may vanish here. In literature and philosophy, this dread has been given voice again and again. Lovecraft turned cosmic silence into horror, depicting a universe vast and uncaring. Camus found in it absurdity, urging us to create meaning despite indifference. Sagan transformed it into a call for stewardship, reminding us that if we are alone, our uniqueness obligates us to protect the earth as the rarest of treasures. Ultimately, the existential weight of silence is not only fear of loneliness, it is fear of irrelevance, of fragility, of finality, but it is also recognition of possibility. If myths once filled the sky with others and science leaves us facing emptiness, then perhaps the true task is to bear the silence with courage, to listen, to wonder, and to act as though our solitary voice matters because it may be the only one the universe has yet produced. Consciousness as a rare jewel. If the silence of the stars hints that minds like ours are scarce, then consciousness itself takes on the shimmer of a rare jewel, fragile, luminous, and beyond price. In daily life, awareness feels ordinary. We wake, work, converse, sleep, all while immersed in a stream of thoughts we scarcely notice. Yet from the cosmic vantage, this unbroken flow of self-awareness is extraordinary. Against the backdrop of a universe dominated by blind matter and silent forces, the ability to reflect, to feel, to ask why, glitters with improbable beauty. Science reminds us how unlikely this jewel is. For billions of years, Earth was home only to microbes. Complex multicellular life emerged late, intelligence later still, and reflective consciousness perhaps only once. The evolutionary path that led from simple cells to human minds was anything but inevitable, riddled with chance extinctions, shifting climates, and fragile contingencies. If one asteroid had not struck, if one climate had not changed, our lineage might have ended before it began. In this light, awareness is not routine, but miraculous. Philosophically, the rarity of consciousness sharpens its value. If the universe is barren of other minds, then our awareness is not one among many, but one of a kind. The contrast between the mundane and the cosmic becomes stark. What feels small in our daily lives, reading, laughing, grieving, wondering, is, in truth, the universe gazing at itself through a singular lens. To dismiss this as trivial is to misunderstand its scale. Consciousness may be fragile, but it may also be the rarest treasure the cosmos has ever produced. This fragility shapes our responsibilities. A jewel can be admired but also lost. Wars, environmental destruction, and reckless technologies threaten to snuff out awareness as easily as history snuffed out countless species before us. The silence of the stars may reflect that fragility. Perhaps many worlds gave rise to thought, but few preserved it. If consciousness is a jewel, then it demands protection not only for its beauty, but for its rarity. At the same time, this recognition reframes the meaning of existence. To know that awareness is precious is to infuse even ordinary life with weight. The act of watching a sunset or listening to music or holding a child becomes more than personal, it becomes cosmic. Each conscious moment testifies against the silence, a flicker of light in a universe otherwise indifferent. Mundanity is elevated into significance because it is so unlikely, so fragile, so rare. Culturally, this theme resonates in art and literature. Poets marvel at the unreasonable effectiveness of beauty. Philosophers call consciousness the hard problem, baffled by how matter gives rise to mind. Science fiction often portrays awareness itself as the true treasure of the cosmos, more valuable than technology or conquest. These stories remind us that the jewel is not its rarity alone, but its capacity to create meaning, to generate wonder, to imagine futures. Yet humility tempers this awe. To frame consciousness as a jewel is not to exalt humanity above all, but to remind us of fragility. A jewel is delicate, and so are we. Our awareness is bound to neural tissue, vulnerable to decay and disaster. Its rarity may not make us superior, but profoundly precarious. And that recognition, rather than diminishing us, can inspire care for ourselves, for each other, for the planet that sustains us. In the end, to see consciousness as a rare jewel is to hold two truths at once: its fragility and its brilliance. Mundane existence becomes cosmic uniqueness. Every thought, every act of awareness, every question we ask gleams with improbable significance. The silence of the universe may weigh heavily, but within that silence, this jewel shines all the brighter. Our task is not only to admire it, but to protect it, ensuring that it endures, so that the cosmos does not lose one of its rarest and most precious creations. Meaning in solitude, if we are truly alone in the cosmos, if the great silence reflects not distance or difference, but absence, then the weight of solitude falls entirely on us. For some, this possibility breeds despair. A universe without other minds can feel indifferent, even nihilistic, as though our struggles and achievements dissolve into nothingness once Earth itself fades. Yet solitude need not empty existence of meaning. It can also deepen it, forcing us to see ourselves not as irrelevant specks, but as the bearers of responsibility for consciousness itself. The nihilistic perspective is seductive because it echoes the vastness of space. Against billions of galaxies, what can one species matter? Empires rise and fall, stars ignite and die, galaxies drift apart. Human history seems trivial in comparison. If no other minds exist to witness us, then perhaps nothing matters. Our stories, our cultures, even our memories would vanish into silence, unshared and unnoticed. From this angle, solitude feels like futility written in the stars. But meaning is not only found in audience, it can also be found in creation. If we are the only minds, then every poem, every equation, every song becomes singular. The absence of others does not diminish value, it magnifies it. A lone flame in a dark room is not meaningless because it stands alone, it is meaningful precisely because it stands alone. Solitude can transform every conscious act into a defiance of indifference, a declaration that awareness itself is enough to justify existence. This reframing leads to a vision of cosmic responsibility. If humanity is the only witness, then we bear the duty of preserving not just our species, but the very phenomenon of awareness. Our survival becomes more than self-interest. It becomes stewardship. The knowledge, art, and wisdom we create are not merely cultural artifacts, but the universe's only self-reflections. In solitude, responsibility expands to care for Earth, to nurture intelligence, to ensure that consciousness does not vanish into the silence from which it emerged. Philosophically, solitude also invites humility. If we are the only ones, then our place is both exalted and precarious. Exalted because our minds represent a rarity of cosmic scale. Precarious because the loss of humanity would mean the loss of consciousness itself, at least in this corner of existence. The contrast between nihilism and responsibility hinges on perspective. Solitude can be a void, or it can be a call. The choice lies in how we interpret it. Culturally, the theme of solitude resonates in both despair and hope. Writers like Nietzsche warned of the abyss, the danger of staring into meaninglessness. Others, like Camus, insisted on rebellion against absurdity, finding joy and dignity even in a silent universe. Science communicators such as Carl Sagan reframed solitude as privilege. If we are alone, then Earth is a jewel beyond price, and humanity's duty is to safeguard it. Across these interpretations, the silence remains the same, but the response changes from nihilism to stewardship, from despair to awe. In daily life, this framing can feel distant, yet it is deeply personal. To love, to create, to wonder, these acts gain significance if they are unique in the cosmos. Meaning in solitude does not come from confirmation by others, but from recognition of rarity. If no one else exists, then every human experience becomes cosmically singular, a one-time phenomenon in all of existence. That thought can crush us, or it can inspire us to live more fully. Ultimately, meaning in solitude is not given, but chosen. The silence of the universe confronts us with two paths: to see emptiness and despair, or to see responsibility and wonder. If we are alone, then we are not insignificant. We are indispensable. In solitude, meaning is not lost but magnified, for it rests entirely in our hands. And that may be the most profound responsibility the universe has ever offered. Skepticism and scientific patience, it is tempting when faced with the silence of the stars to conclude that the universe is empty. Yet such despair may be premature. Our search for extraterrestrial life has only just begun, and compared to the
immensity of the cosmos, we have scarcely dipped a toe into the ocean.
To confuse early quiet with final absence is to mistake a momentary pause for a verdict. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, formalized in the 1960s, has been active for barely half a century. In that time, radio telescopes have scanned portions of the sky, monitoring narrow bands of frequency for signals, but the scope of this search is vanishingly small compared to what remains unexplored. The galaxy contains hundreds of billions of stars, each with multiple planets, and our surveys have touched only a fraction of them. Statistically, the silence so far tells us very little. Recent advances expand the search in dramatic ways. Instruments, like the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, allow us to study the atmospheres of distant exoplanets, searching for chemical signatures of life. Detecting oxygen, methane, or unusual combinations of gases could signal biological activity, even if no intelligence is present. Future observatories, like the planned Habitable Worlds Observatory, promise even sharper glimpses, perhaps the first true detection of biosignatures beyond Earth. What seems empty today may tomorrow reveal abundance. Nor is the effort limited to telescopes. Space probes are extending our reach within the solar system. Missions to Europa, Enceladus, and Titan aim to investigate hidden oceans and complex chemistries that could harbor microbial life. Mars rovers continue to search for signs of ancient habitability. Each step enlarges the circle of evidence, reminding us that silence is not ignorance but invitation to look deeper. Patience is essential because cosmic timescales dwarf human impatience. Our radios have been broadcasting for just over a century, creating a detectable bubble only about 100 light-years wide. That bubble touches a mere sliver of the galaxy. If other civilizations are broadcasting from farther away, their signals simply have not reached us yet. To despair at silence is like standing on a beach, listening for ships across the horizon and declaring the ocean empty after a few minutes of quiet. Philosophically, this perspective restores balance. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but evidence of immaturity. Our search is still in its infancy. To expect the cosmos to reveal its secrets quickly is to impose human impatience on a universe that measures time in billions of years. The great silence may not be final judgment, but simply the pause before discovery. Culturally, the motif of premature despair appears again and again. In stories from Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama to Liu Cixin's three-body problem, humanity assumes emptiness until sudden revelation overturns certainty. These narratives mirror our current moment. We live between expectation and confirmation, tempted to surrender to silence but compelled to keep listening. The search itself becomes a form of faith not in myth, but in the power of persistence. In the end, the silence so far should not frighten us into nihilism. It should inspire us to search more deeply, more creatively, and more patiently. The tools we have today are the first whispers of what is possible. The probes, telescopes, and algorithms of tomorrow will expand our reach exponentially. To live at the dawn of this search is not a curse but a privilege. The cosmos has had nearly 14 billion years to prepare its mysteries. We have only just begun to ask. False alarms and lessons learned. For decades, the search for extraterrestrial life has been punctuated by moments of thrilling possibility signals that seem to hint at alien intelligence only to dissolve into disappointment. These false alarms have not only tested scientific patience but also revealed the challenges of listening for whispers in a noisy universe. Each episode has carried the same arc: excitement, scrutiny, correction. And from each, we have learned something valuable about both science and ourselves. Perhaps the most famous is the wow signal detected in 1977 by the Big Ear radio telescope in Ohio. For 72 seconds, a narrowband radio burst blazed far above the background noise, so striking that astronomer Jerry Amon circled the printout and scrawled "wow" in the margin. The signal bore hallmarks of an artificial source: precise, strong, unexplained. Yet despite repeated attempts, it was never observed again. Decades later, theories range from passing comets to unknown interference, but no consensus exists. The wow signal remains a tantalizing mystery, a reminder that the line between noise and message is perilously thin. Other cases follow. Pulsars, when first discovered in 1967, emitted such regular signals that their discoverers half-jokingly labeled them LGM little green men. They turned out to be rotating neutron stars, not alien, but the incident underscored how easily new, natural phenomena can masquerade as intelligent. More recently, unusual fluctuations in Tabby's star sparked speculation about alien megastructures. Careful study revealed clouds of dust as the culprit, not Dyson spheres. Each time, the extraordinary gave way to the ordinary, but not without sharpening our methods. These false alarms reveal the tension between hope and rigor. Humanity yearns for confirmation that we are not alone. When unusual signals appear, we lean toward wonder, sometimes prematurely. But science demands patience, replication, and skepticism. Disappointment tempers excitement, but it also strengthens discipline. Each false alarm forces us to refine our instruments, expand our catalog of natural phenomena, and guard against bias. In this way, the very failures become progress. Philosophically, false alarms mirror the broader search. They capture the essence of our condition: eager, uncertain, oscillating between awe and disillusion. Each disappointment carries existential weight, reminding us that the silence may not yield easily. Yet they also underscore the dignity of persistence. To continue listening despite repeated letdowns is to embody a kind of cosmic patience, a refusal to surrender wonder to skepticism. Culturally, These episodes ripple outward. The wow signal still inspires novels, films, and speculation, living on as a symbol of possibility, even if it was nothing more than noise. Tabby's star became a media sensation, its mystery igniting public imagination before scientific caution prevailed. These stories remind us that the hunger for contact is not confined to scientists. It is a collective longing, a desire shared across humanity. False alarms in their rise and fall reflect how deeply we want the silence to break. Ultimately, the lesson is humility. The universe is filled with phenomena we do not yet understand, and distinguishing natural wonder from intelligent design is profoundly difficult. False alarms are not failures but stepping stones, teaching us to recognize our own biases, to refine our listening, to expand our patience. They remind us that the search is not simply about answers, but about learning how to ask questions better. In the end, every wow signal, every mistaken pulsar, every dust cloud masquerade sharpens both our science and our humanity. Excitement gives way to disappointment, but disappointment gives way to perseverance. The silence remains, but so does the search. And perhaps the truest lesson is this: even false alarms prove that we are still listening, still hoping, still daring to imagine that the universe has more to say. Why silence doesn't mean alone. It is easy to confuse silence with absence. When we scan the skies and hear nothing, the temptation is to conclude that no one is there. Yet the truth is subtler. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The cosmos is vast, our tools are young, and our methods are still primitive compared to the scale of the challenge. Silence may be real, but it does not have to mean solitude. Consider the limits of our reach. Humanity has been listening for alien signals for scarcely half a century. Our radio telescopes, sensitive though they are, cover only narrow slices of the sky and limited frequency ranges. If alien civilizations transmit on channels we are not tuned to, or communicate through means we have not imagined, their voices would pass us by unnoticed. Silence in our band of hearing does not imply silence everywhere. Distance compounds the problem. Our own broadcasts have traveled only about 100 light years, a minuscule bubble within a galaxy 100,000 light years wide. Any civilization beyond that radius has not yet had the chance to know we exist, let alone respond. The silence we experience is less a cosmic verdict than a consequence of geography. Expecting immediate answers in such immensity is like calling across an ocean and assuming no reply means no one else lives on shore. There is also the matter of time scales. Civilizations may rise and fall over spans of millennia, while the universe stretches across billions of years. The overlap between technological lifespans may be slim. A species that broadcasted signals 1 million years ago might be long gone. Its transmissions faded into static before reaching us. Another may not yet have emerged. Silence, then, may not signify emptiness, but simply missed connections, civilizations passing like ships in the night of cosmic time. Philosophically, silence becomes a mirror of our assumption. We expect life to behave as we do, to transmit signals, to build structures, to leave detectable traces. But what if intelligence flourishes in forms alien to our expectations? What if their communication is biological, gravitational, or quantum? What if their priorities do not include contact? The silence may not mean we are alone, but that our search is too narrow, our imagination too constrained. Caution, then, must temper despair. To declare the universe empty on the basis of our current tools would be like declaring the oceans lifeless after scanning a single tide pool. Patience is required, as is humility. The silence is data, but it is incomplete, a fragment of a much larger picture still unfolding. At the same time, curiosity must temper caution. The fact that we have not yet found others should not stifle the search, it should invigorate it. Every year, our instruments grow sharper, our methods more sophisticated. The James Webb Space Telescope, new arrays like the Square Kilometre Array, and probes to icy moons all expand our capacity to detect signs of life. Silence is not an answer. It is an invitation to keep asking the question. Culturally, this tension between caution and curiosity resonates deeply. We balance skepticism with wonder, restraint with hope. The silence both frustrates and inspires, reminding us how little we know and how much we still might discover. To stop listening would be to abandon one of humanity's oldest impulses, the desire to know whether we are alone. In the end, silence does not prove solitude. It proves only that the universe guards its secrets well. Our task is not to mistake quiet for emptiness, but to persist in curiosity, to keep listening, and to hold open the possibility that somewhere, someday, the silence will break, living with cosmic loneliness. If the great silence means we are among the first to awaken, then humanity carries a weight far larger than itself. We are not merely one species among many, but perhaps the inaugural bearer of consciousness in the galaxy. To imagine ourselves as pioneers is to feel two truths in tension: our smallness in scale and our immense responsibility in meaning. On one hand, we are small beyond comprehension. Our planet is a speck orbiting an average star, tucked into an ordinary arm of an ordinary galaxy among 2 trillion more. Our technology is still fragile, our reach confined to a solar system we barely understand. The immensity of the universe reduces us to near nothingness. Against that backdrop, it seems absurd to imagine humanity as important, let alone pioneering. Yet scale alone does not determine significance. A single candle may be small in size but immense in effect when it is the only light in the dark. If minds are rare, then our awareness illuminates more than our planet. It illuminates the cosmos itself. We become not insignificant, but indispensable. As pioneers, we are the first carriers of a flame that could one day spread among the stars, shaping the character of galactic intelligence. To frame ourselves as pioneers is to embrace both possibility and duty. Possibility because the silence may not last forever. Perhaps other species are emerging in parallel or will awaken millennia from now. Our actions could influence how they perceive intelligence, cooperation, and survival. Duty, because failure would not only erase humanity but squander a unique chance for the universe to know itself. To extinguish consciousness here would be to dim a light that may not be rekindled elsewhere. History offers a mirror. Human pioneers crossing oceans or deserts faced danger, but also opened pathways for others. Some legacies were noble, others destructive. The analogy warns us that pioneering carries ethical weight, how we treat our world, our technologies, and one day, our neighboring systems will define the precedent for intelligence in the cosmos. Will we embody exploitation and short-sightedness, or wisdom and stewardship? Being first does not make us masters, it makes us examples. Science sharpens this perspective. We now know Earth is fragile, its climate delicately balanced, its biosphere vulnerable to disruption. Our tools give us planetary-scale power, but not yet planetary-scale wisdom. Nuclear arsenals, ecological collapse, and uncontrolled technologies remind us how easily pioneers can falter. If we are the first, then survival is not only for ourselves, but for the legacy of consciousness. Our role as pioneers requires not only exploration, but preservation. Philosophically, this reframing turns solitude into purpose. The silence of the universe is not a verdict of despair, but a summon. It calls us to live not as insignificant beings adrift in meaninglessness, but as guardians of awareness. If there are no others, then what we create, our art, our science, our compassion, becomes the universe's only testimony to what thought can achieve. This responsibility may feel crushing, but it is also ennobling. To be pioneers is to matter in a way that transcends scale. Culturally, the pioneer motif resonates deeply. Myths and stories across civilizations honor those who venture into the unknown, who risk themselves to bring light to others. In the modern age, space exploration echoes this archetype. The first footprints on the moon, the first images from Mars, the probes sailing into interstellar space, these are not just achievements but symbols. They remind us that pioneering is not conquest but curiosity, not dominance but the extension of possibility. Ultimately, to imagine ourselves as pioneers is to accept paradox. We are tiny, yet our choices carry cosmic weight. The silence of the galaxy leaves us without guides, but it also leaves us free to shape what intelligence will mean. If we are first, then our task is not only survival, but inspiration. We must ensure that when the silence eventually breaks, whether through contact with others or through the voices of our own descendants among the stars, it reveals that the first pioneers treated consciousness as the rarest treasure and bore their responsibility with awe, creating a future worth sharing. If humanity truly stands at the forefront of intelligence in the galaxy, then our task is not only to survive, but to create a future worth sharing. The great silence is not a reason for despair, but a canvas for determination. Whether or not other minds exist, our responsibility is to ensure that if they ever do, or if our descendants one day meet them, we will have built a story of consciousness that is worth telling. The first step is survival. Extinction, whether through war, environmental collapse, or apathy, would reduce the silence to permanent. To survive is to keep open the possibility of dialogue, even if that dialogue comes millions of years from now. But survival alone is not enough. A stagnant civilization that endures but fails to flourish would not embody the true potential of intelligence. To share the future, we must not only exist, we must grow, learn, and aspire. This growth must be both outward and inward. Outward, through exploration and expansion beyond Earth. The solar system offers resources and frontiers: Mars, asteroids, moons rich with ice and mystery. By establishing ourselves beyond our fragile cradle, we reduce the risks of annihilation and increase the resilience of consciousness. Inward, through cultivating wisdom, justice, and creativity. A civilization that spreads without flourishing internally risks carrying its divisions and destructiveness outward. A future worth sharing must be not only enduring, but humane. Despair tempts us to surrender to the silence, to conclude that if the universe is empty, nothing matters. But this is a misunderstanding. If the universe is empty, then everything we do matters infinitely more. Every act of kindness, every scientific discovery, every work of art becomes unique, unrepeatable, perhaps unparalleled in all of existence. Despair sees the void as negation, determination sees it as opportunity. The absence of others gives us the freedom to define what it means to be intelligent life. Philosophically, creating a future worth sharing means refusing to see existence as accident alone. It means treating consciousness as a project, fragile, evolving, shaped by choice. Our myths, our sciences, our philosophies become the blueprints of tomorrow. Even if no one else ever hears them, they will stand as monuments of what awareness achieved while it had the chance. If others do exist or will one day arise, then our legacy becomes a gift, a story we hand forward across the ages. Culturally, this vision resonates with our deepest narratives, from epics of heroes who venture beyond their homelands to modern space exploration. We celebrate not only survival, but transformation. The Apollo missions were not undertaken for necessity, but for wonder, for the symbolic leap that told humanity it could transcend limits. Similarly, the drive to create a future worth sharing must be animated not only by fear of extinction, but by a hunger for beauty, meaning, and connection. Practically, this requires choices. We must invest in sustainable technologies, space exploration, and scientific discovery. But we must also nurture ethical frameworks that guide these advances, ensuring they serve flourishing rather than domination. To create a future worth sharing means asking not only can we survive, but should we survive in this form? What kind of civilization do we want to present, either to others or to our own descendants who inherit the stars? In the end, the silence is not an answer, but a challenge. It dares us to prove that we can be more than fleeting sparks, that we can carry awareness forward into futures yet unseen. Despair sees the silence as emptiness. Determination sees it as invitation. To create a future worth sharing is to choose the latter, to endure, to expand, to flourish, and to leave behind a story that will matter whether whispered across the stars or held only within our own enduring memory. The mystery remains, although. End of all speculation. After the equations, the hypotheses, and the paradoxes, one truth lingers. The mystery remains. We do not know if we are alone. We do not know whether the silence hides abundance or absence, patience or extinction. The cosmos offers no clear verdict, only a question that refuses to be answered. And perhaps that refusal is the point. Certainty would bring closure. To discover alien life tomorrow, whether microbial fossils on Mars or a signal from a distant star, would resolve much of our wonder. To confirm emptiness forever would also resolve it, though in despair. But in this moment, we live within the space between answers, and that space is uniquely human. It is here that curiosity flourishes, here that imagination expands, here that awe finds its voice. The contrast between certainty and mystery shapes our relationship to the universe. Certainty reassures, mystery unsettles. Certainty allows us to plan, to classify, to conclude. Mystery resists, forcing us to remain open, questioning, humble. The silence of the stars may frustrate our longing for resolution, but it also sustains the wonder that drives exploration. Without mystery, science stalls, philosophy withers, imagination dimmed. With mystery, the cosmos remains alive, not as an answer, but as an invitation. Historically, humanity has thrived on mystery. Ancient peoples saw gods in the stars, weaving mythologies that gave meaning to the unknown. Later, science replaced myth with method, yet the sense of awe persisted. Each discovery, the structure of DNA, the expansion of the universe, the first photograph of a black hole, resolved one question only to open 10 more. Mystery is not the enemy of knowledge, but its companion, the horizon that recedes as we advance. In this light, the great silence is less a failure than a gift. It reminds us that the universe is vast, that our knowledge is partial, that our role is not to command answers but to pursue them. To live within mystery is to accept both limitation and possibility. Limitation because certainty eludes us, possibility because the unknown still waits, immense and unclaimed. Philosophically, mystery tempers arrogance. It resists the human tendency to assume centrality, to declare ourselves either alone or supreme. Mystery humbles us, reminding us that we are not masters but participants in a story far larger than we can grasp. At the same time, it elevates us because to wonder is itself a profound act. In asking, we become more than passive beings. We become seekers, aware that the silence does not end thought, but begins it. Culturally, the allure of mystery endures, from the unanswered wow signal to speculative fictions about alien civilizations. Our art and literature reflect the tension between knowing and not knowing. Mystery gives rise to stories, and stories give rise to meaning. Even if we never resolve the silence, the act of grappling with it enriches us, shaping how we see ourselves and our place in the cosmos. Practically, the mystery demands patience. We must continue the search with open eyes and open minds, prepared for answers but not dependent on them. Whether through telescopes scanning exoplanets, probes exploring icy moons, or algorithms sifting through cosmic noise, the pursuit itself becomes part of our identity. To seek is to affirm that the silence has not defeated us. In the end, perhaps the greatest truth is that certainty is not required for meaning. Whether we are alone or surrounded by unseen neighbors, the silence drives us to ask deeper questions about existence, responsibility, and wonder. The mystery is eternal, and that eternity itself may be the gift. For in mystery we find humility, awe, and purpose, the recognition that the universe is not ours to solve, but ours to experience with.
Courage and imagination. The silence continues, question endures, and the mystery remains.